Yeah, give us a brief outline of the Screen Composers Guild of New Zealand.
Well, the Screen Composers Guild we set up about 1 or 2 years ago, and it's basically an organisation that looks at sort of representing people who write for screen. So that's people who write for film, television, advertising, probably extended to games, anything basically with a screen. And we felt very strongly, a group of us APRA members felt very strongly that APRA wasn't doing enough, or anything actually, to look at the concerns of our area of the industry. There's a lot of talk towards artists and bands all the time, and it's always about artists and bands, but 60% of all APRA revenue is from film and television. So there's a huge sector of not only their income but also of people's careers that isn't being talked about or supported. So we basically hit them up for some funding, and somehow I got roped into being too mouthy to set the thing up, and then we were. So
Good, nice.
Yeah.
And it's a relatively new project.
Yes.
But in terms of, with launching, as you know, generally there's a bit of preparation beforehand that people don't see. So
yes.
What was the process like for you of before it's come to fruition? What was it like to set up the whole thing?
Well, we had I met with the head of APRA Australia and from New Zealand as well at the conference in Sydney, the Song Summit there, which was fantastic. Yep. So I was pretty much the only Kiwi there, along with Bobby Kennedy from Opshop, and we were both moaning to them over about a 6-hour period about how something needed to happen. That was about a year before we got the thing off the ground. So they said, well, why don't you do this? There's a guild in Australia. So over about a year, we talked to lots of different people. We did a sort of preliminary workshop in Auckland just to discuss it, an open sort of discussion to see what did people want this? Was it, did people find it interesting? We did the same in Wellington, who were enormously more enthusiastic, of course, than the Aucklanders, and lots more people involved. So there was a lot of talking. Everybody's incredibly keen. Everybody had wanted this for years. And then there was another 6 months of wrangling with, constitutions and getting people
back
together and all that sort of stuff. Getting 12 people to sign the papers to set up the society took almost 3 months. This is what musicians are like. But eventually we got it happening.
And one of the things I saw on your site too is you have a forum which has some really great topics in there.
Yes.
It's a little bit quiet at the moment, though.
That would be an understatement.
Yeah. Do you think musicians could be a bit more proactive in creating work as opposed to just waiting for someone else to give them work?
Oh, absolutely. I think also there's a lot, not as much as I expected, but there's quite a bit of fear, I think, around the fact that we're all working independently of each other and competitively. Of course, it's a small market and we're all trying to get work. I think there was a feeling that if we all clubbed together that we'd be giving away our secrets, and I think the forum's been slow to get going because I don't know, it's a new thing. It's a new thing to think collectively and to not feel you're giving away your trade secrets.
Yeah.
I don't personally think that's even an argument. I think the more you work together, the better it is, the bigger it is, the more work there is. It's not. I don't think there's a finite supply. I guess.
I would love to see that attitude or way of thinking destroyed in this country.
Yes. Yeah.
We all have to get ideas from other people, don't we?
Exactly.
When we grew up with music, we got our ideas from someone else, and it's not like we hurt their career.
No, the more you collaborate, the more you share, the bigger the pool is. And I think we need to get over that. And the forum is part of our way of trying to just get people to say, well, look, what software are you using, or what strings players are you using, or are there any production companies in Singapore, or whatever it is. There's that. It's interesting though, Facebook, we've got a Facebook group as well, that's really working, whereas the forum not so much. So whether it's just people don't know about it as much, but the Facebook group, maybe it's just the way things have moved as well. I mean, that's used daily, and there's people sharing all sorts of stuff.
They're always on there for their own accounts, I suppose.
Like here's some free drum samples I just found, or whatever. So maybe that's another reason. But I think it's just getting the conversation going and trying to get people to come out of... I mean, composers are the most introverted kind of people anyway. I mean, that's why they do what they do. They're not rock stars, I guess. Well, not all of them. So, it's just trying to get people to start the conversation, and then, they'll find it's not so bad.
Yeah. And One of the purposes of this music talk series is to really, like I was telling you before, is to show people that there's more out there in terms of a career than just a rock star or manager, or just musician. And especially in this country, people wear many hats, as they say.
Yeah.
So
necessity, yeah.
And a couple of the interesting roles I saw, because on your website you've got a directory there, which is really cool. I thought that was a really good idea.
And that there isn't one, and there never has been one, for composers who write for film and TV.
Yeah.
So that seemed absurd to me that there wasn't a way of... If I was a film director, how do I find a composer?
Yeah. It's great that it's on there.
Yep.
But it lists everything from I saw on-set music consultant to sound designer.
Yep.
So could you just tell us about maybe some of the lesser-known roles or titles that come about with composing?
Well, there's a whole bunch of... it's probably more here, as you say, everybody wears multiple hats. I probably do all of those. There's about 20 things on there listed. We don't... Like in New Zealand, you tend to run the whole show, don't you? Whereas in America or Britain, you split it out into all these different roles. Yes, some of those things like music supervisors and are not... They're not very understood roles here because you tend to do it all yourself, I guess. Being a sound designer is a slightly nebulous title, but sound design is arguably looking at sound effects and Foley and all the stuff that isn't music between a score, like if you like in a film, like all the ambience, all those things that are added in that aren't perhaps featured sounds. It would be one way of defining it, but a lot of scores you might notice now are very, particularly in those kind of noirish HBO series and things like that, you've got a lot of music that, is it music or is it kind of ambience? It crosses a line. So we do a lot of stuff that could arguably just be sound effects or ambience or sort of special effects of some kind that are combined with music, and then sometimes the music isn't there. So I don't know, I think a lot of composers here would do very much a mix of composing music and sound design and wouldn't think anything of it. In the States or big budget projects, you might have somebody who just does that and other people who just do the score, the musical score. So roles like that are things we aim to educate people in the Guild. An on-set music consultant, I don't even know if such a thing exists in New Zealand, but those sorts of roles are very defined roles in the Hollywood sort of system. I would imagine the majority of our composers, certainly in the Guild, and what I do, we just do it all. We have to, because the budgets are small, the jobs are small. There isn't the budget or the time, to do. Yeah.
Which is good in some ways, because
absolutely
you learn a whole lot, don't you?
Well,
if you're forced into the deep end, then you have to do something.
Well, you have to. It's the number 8 wire mentality, I guess. I did a film commission. I was very lucky to get some funding from them to go to a big film music conference in LA a couple of years ago, the Billboard Film Music Conference or something like that. And I would routinely talk to all these composers doing exactly what I did, thinking that I was going to be like some little kind of minnow in this big, I felt actually a lot of the work we were doing actually was totally up there, and most of the composers I know here are working on amazing stuff on tiny budgets, and we're working across genres. Like we do, we have to do every genre imaginable, whereas in the States particularly you just concentrate on romantic piano and string music for films. That's your specialty. Whereas here, you just can't specialise, to a degree. We do electronica and clubby stuff and rock and pop and orchestral stuff. We've just done some hip hop, opera, done death metal for Japan. Whatever, we'll do it. And they were like, "Wow, you guys do all these different genres," and thinking, well, yeah, because we have to, and it's fun, So I think that's a New Zealand thing, just like you work for a small firm here, there might be 3 staff, is a big company, and you do everything, you have to. Yeah.
And was that interesting for you as you worked more overseas to find out, hey, we're actually pretty good at this?
Yeah. New Zealand punches above its weight in almost every way. For a tiny little place, but there's a lot of talent here, and we all travel a lot, and we all there's huge amounts of different people obviously coming through New Zealand now, and we've all generally have to go overseas to kind of find ourselves or lose ourselves or whatever. And I think we bring that all home. I learned my trade in London working for all these amazing producers in, at Abbey Road and working with all these huge producers and making cups of coffee or whatever, and you bring that home to this small market, which is very international as well. We do all the ads, a huge ad market here, a lot of films obviously being made and television productions. So, we've got great facilities, great talent. Why not?
Yeah. And do you find that Kiwis can be perhaps a bit hard on themselves in terms of talent, especially when they're first getting into something?
I think, it's the tall poppy syndrome, or whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of, you seem to still have to be big overseas to be recognised back here, which I find infuriating. We do a huge amount of, probably 60-70% of our work is international, major stuff, and we have nothing, pretty much here, because I don't know what you need to do sometimes, and I think a lot of people really feel that there's not a lot of support, although it's changing. There's not a lot of support for people who are just working and doing good stuff here, But then you have a lord or whoever come along who sort of blows everything out of the water. But that's sort of fluky miracle sort of stuff. She's bloody talented, but it's still kind of the real exception, I think. There's amazing talent here.
It would be nice for those exceptions too to put more of a spotlight, or perhaps we, even nicer would be if we didn't have to wait for those exceptions to realise, just how much talent there is here.
There is amazing talent here. Incredible. The players and things I've used here, like particularly with strings players, for us for film stuff, and just pick a player, or instrument, or a singer or a performer. You can find it here. We do world music series for the whole world here, and we've used and found the most incredible people, like Sri Lankan traditional singers. We've just done a whole series of world music for Les Mills, which is with this amazing troupe of like Indian musicians here. Who's one of the top Northern Indian violinists in the world, lives here. You can find all this sort of stuff.
And that's what I was saying before. It intrigues me about what you do, because it's so cool. It's like, you get a an Eskimo ukulele player from North America, or
pretty much
random as you can get. Just all sorts.
But
of
you
stuff
can find it here, and of course, being now everything's online as well. We also collaborate now, with everybody everywhere online, so it doesn't really matter. I think that's changed hugely, particularly in our field. Because most of our jobs, I've never even met the clients. I've never seen them. Maybe Skype them. And email, and then we send the files off, and that's that.
That's interesting.
So that's opened a huge, amount of avenues, I think, for musicians here. Yeah, definitely.
You were saying too about the support and things. I think one thing that we can all do anyway is support the industry ourselves, rather than just going, well, we need more support, we need this, we need that. Just get involved in a grassroots level. And one of the things that you guys do is put on workshops.
Yeah.
So how were I saw a couple there. How were the last ones?
Yeah, well, we've done, so far, we're aiming to do 2 workshops a year in Auckland and Wellington, and eventually Christchurch, when we have some South Island members. We're trying to find them, locate them. Yeah, they've gone really well. Wellington initially was like super, they're much more, I don't know, sorry Auckland, but you really suck sometimes at getting people out of their houses and into their cars to drive, So the turnout was initially a bit disappointing in Auckland, but the second workshop was great, and we did like a 5-6 hour workshop in Auckland at the APRA offices, and Park Road Post, Peter Jackson's amazingly fancy facility, sponsor us in Wellington, so which is a good excuse for anybody to come along just to kind of nosy around. And so we've had probably 30 people each time, which is pretty impressive for our field, and anybody would learn from it, and you meet each other, and who your rivals and your peers are. It's been fantastic, and we're going to keep doing them. And we want to aim to do 2 formal sort of workshops each year, plus other sort of informal ones as if we have got visiting composers, and we've got some really cool stuff lined up later in the year. I'm just tying them up at the moment if I ever had time to do that. And
do you find, as an instructor, if you want to call it that, at the workshop, that you learn a couple of things as well?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. Just things, you always come away with 2 or 3 things that you think, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't know that, or, because you're talking, I'm a rookie compared to this lot. You've got, Oscar-winning composers sitting next to you who just, turn up in their, jeans and sweatshirt or whatever, and
Yeah.
talk about, oh yeah, no, I've been just working on this film with with Peter Jackson, blah 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 blah. I'm working on Avatar. We're doing a few films with that. Whatever. I mean, anybody would learn from that, but just in the same way that a lot of these people. I mean, I come from quite a commercial background. And a lot of these people work in a very different field, so they're learning from me something. I'm certainly picking up heaps of stuff,
Yeah, cool.
And just being able to moan and groan about
Yeah.
things that you share, because we all have the same problems with clients and directors who are crazy. We're all crazy.
Yeah, well, look, if you go to your bank and start moaning about what the music, but they might not really understand. It's good to have other people in the same boat, isn't it?
Just that, it's like having a therapy session for otherwise who do you talk to?
Yeah.
I'm lucky I've got a business partner, but most people work in on their own and have to deal with crazy directors and producers and budgets and contracts and all the stuff that we're all doing all the time. So why not collaborate and share that knowledge? It's
Exactly.
just logical.
Yeah. And as someone who works with film and television especially, what's some of the challenges? We've touched on this a little, but specifically to New Zealand, do you think, at the moment?
At the moment, we come, for our company, the Sound Room, we focus very much, or have done, on documentary score. So we're writing music for either television or film documentaries. There's been quite a big change in the viewing numbers. That would be an understatement, and television particularly. Ratings for documentaries have just died. In fact, ratings for television have died, and that's why advertising, and that means advertising spend drops, which means revenue for television companies drops. There's a whole bunch of other reasons, but essentially in the last 2 years we've gone from doing maybe 15 big docos a year to maybe doing 5, and the budgets would be a third of what they used to be. So that's a massive change for us, which means
cut,
and I'm sure many other composers are feeling the same thing. Docos are still being made, but generally overseas there's very little being made for television here, which I think is an incredible shame, because I love documentary and most people want to see the New Zealand stories on screen. That's been a big change. It's a big challenge.
Has there been any switch to, say, internet-based documentaries or anything like that?
I think there's huge amounts more stuff being made, but the problem is because it's being split across thousands of channels versus what used to be 2 or 3 channels. You've got advertising spend being spread over 1,000 channels. So, there's a lot of amazing, innovative stuff being made, but all on shoestring budgets. A lot of library music, production music being used instead of composed stuff, which is a major ongoing issue, and it will become a bigger issue even. So, because of budgets shrinking, and because of also the improvement in libraries, production libraries, which we can talk about if you like in more detail, but they have 100,000 or 500,000 tracks that you can just search and then try them out in a film. Now, it's for some quick turnaround, low budget reality TV stuff, it's quicker and easier for these production companies, and cheaper to use, library music. So that's another big change as well. Yeah.
And how has that changed? Just touching on those production libraries. I mean, before you'd have to track down, or there'd be a few production libraries that someone in the business would know of, I'm guessing. Whereas now it's like you Google, free sound effects. And
there's tons of them, and they're not usually free. And well, there are free ones, of course, if you want to do that. But for commercial productions, you need to use legitimate licensed stuff.
Yeah.
I think what's changed is that the libraries are much bigger, the quality's much better, and the pricing's really competitive. You can, there are certain publishers who I won't name specifically who have, particularly in New Zealand and Australia, and have come in and they offer a fixed price for a year of, say, $5,000 for the use of their entire library. Any tracks you want, as many tracks as you want for the whole year. So, we might have been getting paid, I don't know, 10 or 15,000 or whatever to do a doco score. So, there's obvious savings to be made there with production companies. So that's having a bottom line effect across the industry from our point of view. Why would we get stuff composed when we can have all this stuff, all this music there? Yeah. So, I still think, and the directors that I work with still really think that a composed piece to picture will always be better than something you can find from a library and look through. Who wants to look through all those? There's a whole series of arguments, pros and cons, but the libraries you're definitely taking a big chunk of the market. So yeah.
This is probably I think very important. So we've talked about what the challenge is at the moment.
And they're just a couple. I mean, there's endless challenges. They're just some. Yeah.
We'll do another interview when it's just all the challenges.
Here are the challenges. These are my challenges.
But how do you overcome that?
Be innovative and be quick on your feet. I mean, I think it's just like everything to do with the music industry as a whole. I mean, in my short career, the last 20, 25 years, I mean, it's changed radically, and it's going to keep changing. You've just got to be somehow keep abreast of the changes and to try and get a feel for, well, what's happening next. I mean, we've started to do computer games. We've certainly done them for the last few years, in Japan especially, and some local stuff here. Phones for games, games for phones initially,
Yep.
and then games, arcade games, and then online games and all that sort of stuff. That's definitely, obviously, a massive growing market. It outsells the music industry, I think, now easily in terms of record sales versus game sales.
Yeah.
So it's finding those new niches. We're doing a lot more ebooks. I didn't even know that was a thing until about 2 years ago. So we're doing a lot of that. Interactive books, interactive software, music for spaces. I mean, we do music for museums and galleries, music for commercial applications. Obviously, television advertising. There's actually more ads being made now by power of 10, I think, but smaller budgets, but a lot more being made. So there is still work out there. It's different though, and I mean, look, I'd love to just score Hollywood independent cinema, but it's just that's one niche.
Yeah.
I think it's to survive, you have to be innovative. Yeah,
and I guess in a way, having to expand like that is good for you as a musician too, because
we had this call from... I mean, we just don't say no to anything. I mean, some things I've thought. I mean, we did a Maori Pacific series for the UK a year ago, which I felt we had some qualifications to do. I mean, I'm not Maori and Tom's African, but we collaborated with some local iwi and Pacific island groups, which was really amazing. And then they said, "Oh, can you do an Aboriginal series?" and we went, we could do our take on Aboriginal music. So yeah, I mean, we pride ourselves on being. We find it interesting to some people have a really specific groove and genre and style. I totally respect that. I personally find it really interesting to do whatever and anything. We've done literally every style. I don't think there is a genre we haven't done, including gothic industrial metal. I didn't even know what that was. I still don't really. For Japanese, so we had to find somebody who could sing operatic stuff and a metal singer, and then turned out Tom's youngest son plays really heavy rock sort of stuff, so he did the guitar for us. So we just make it happen. And if somebody wants traditional, we just did a Bollywood score, well, we collaborate with people who do that, so that's the way we work. Other people, they're very, very good at their style and they stick to that. So
I love it. That sounds so cool.
It makes days interesting.
Something we were talking about before too is it would be good just to get a bit of conversation going of what you'd like to see changed with the New Zealand industry. What's your opinions on that or perspectives on that? What do you think?
Well, I've often thought whenever I do sort of tiki tours, promotional tours for our company around the world, and we spend a lot of our own money going to workshops and seminars and conferences and knocking on doors and meeting people around the world to drum up work. It seems ridiculous to me that it costs me $10,000 to go to a conference where we're talking about an industry here that's in our field that's tiny. If we collaborate and share our resources, like we do with the film industry, like we do with our sporting industry, whatever, we come across as a New Zealand brand. We have great facilities here. We're all doing different things. I mean, I'm not going to take work away from somebody who's doing a totally different style and genre to me. So my ultimate goal for the Guild is to promote New Zealand Inc., if you like, as, we can do this. Like, if you're filming a film here, you don't need to do the music back in California. You can do it here. I had Americans asking me on my last trip to LA, "Oh, do you guys have orchestras there?" The NZSO is one of the oldest and most venerated orchestras in the world. God. Do you have facilities? You do. Where can you record there? And stuff like that. So there's a big education thing that needs to happen there. They know we're kick ass at making and producing films here, they need to know we also can write and record with the best of them here. On a cost factor, we are cheaper. Not that should ever really be a major argument, but we also have all the facilities and all the talent, so, why not? So working, again, collaboratively to promote all of us is so much better than trying to do it all independently.
Oh, most definitely.
Of course, there's some issues there in terms of, competing against each other and all that sort of thing, but ultimately a guild, should be an independent body that can perhaps hopefully just say, well, look, here's a directory, for starters, of composers, which we never had before. If you're looking for a composer in New Zealand, have a look through the directory. If you're looking for facilities, orchestras, players, sound stages, etc.
It's all there, really.
Exactly.
And one of the things, too, I was thinking is that, what musicians are like, it takes all sorts.
Oh, yes.
So some people, or some musicians or composers, might hear Screen Composers Guild of New Zealand and be a little bit intimidated.
Yes.
Can anyone...
I suggested other names, but there was a vote. No, I mean, look, the reason it's called the Screen Composers Guild is because there's similar guilds in Australia and America and Britain and all over the world, and in fact there's about 20 of them. So we obviously wanted to link into that. Anybody who is an APRA member can join. It's only $25 to start with, and it goes up from there when you become rich and famous. And really, it's not about the money. It's really about having you can be listed on a directory. You can come along to all these workshops for free. You get to network and learn off the best and the. I'm not talking about me. The best and the greatest in the land. At what we do. So there's nothing to be lost, really. And even if people aren't APRA members, I'm sure we can include them somehow. It's really just trying to foster the up and coming talent and people who are perhaps looking at a career change or looking at building other aspects of their musicality.
Yeah. And so they details are on your website. They can just give you an email.
Yeah, everything's on there. And get in contact. We try to keep. We're really casual. We're all musicians. We're all in this together. So no, it's no problem at all. That's what we're there for.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And, last one. If you had a magic mic and the industry could hear you and take in what you could say. You could only say one sentence. What would that be?
Ooh, I just think in New Zealand we need to collaborate and share and work together to build sustainable careers in music. It's the only way we can do it. We're too small, too isolated to do it alone. So why not do it together?
Amen to that. Cool. Cheers, Marshall.
No worries.